right, so I wanted to quickly overview a really practical use case of an MCP. Just call out this video is very much geared towards people who use Coda as well as Claude Desktop. So let's just jump right in. So I've been using Coda for a long time. I've been using Claude for a long time. When MCPs came out, it was really exciting because they allow us, to grant access to our APIs of choice and let our agents go about using those endpoints. And so what I realized though is that for whatever reason, I think it's partially because Coda is going through a merger with Grammarly right now, and so there's just a lot of moving pieces on their end, but they have not yet developed an MCP. And so I came across somebody, this individual here, who had made an MCP server for Coda, and I just made my own with a handful of additional endpoints. And so really the big call outs here are that we cannot create tables yet. However, we can create templates that we then point our our Claude Desktop app with Coda MCP, and we get some pretty magical results. So this really practical example that I wanted to show is just based around what everybody loves, and that's food. So obviously there's a bunch of other work or use cases that we can do that apply to your day-to-day work, but what this MCP is meant for, what this Coda doc is meant for is a place where you can compile your favorite recipes and kind of avoid that whole, eye cancer experience when you view recipe articles. They're brutal, they're horrible, I dislike them a lot. So anyways, what I decided is what if we just made a workflow that involves Claude Desktop, MCP, and a pre-built Coda doc. And so that's what we do. And so basically how this is configured is you just go ahead and drop that link in there. We'll make sure our Coda MCP is engaged here, all 34 endpoints are there, and I've made this Claude project so it knows when it receives one of these links, just get to work. Start plugging that into my Coda doc, and what that will look like is we will start seeing a recipe file. So let's see what it's going to tell us. Okay, it looked at the recipe, now it's creating a row. Let's inspect. Up until recently, I've always kind of micromanaged this and granted access per step, but for the case of this demo, I just wanted to say accept always, so it just kind of flows through there. But this gives you insights into what's happening in the background. Let's see, table structure. I provided the table structure as a knowledge doc, so I'm curious which table it's inspecting because I gave it recipe and ingredients, listing columns. So last one I did was Mexican street corn tacos. This one, as you can see from the link, it looks like it is better than taquera beef barbacoa. So I think it's actually a really solid recipe. Even though barbacoa, from my background in kitchens, that takes a long time to prepare. So let's see. Now we've got the instructions raw. It's okay. It's drifting a little bit here, but we might be able to still bring it home. Let's see where it goes with this. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't think it is drifting. I have it create these instructions in the raw, and then I convert that to Markdown. So we've got the recipe entered here. We just saw that pop up. This doesn't look great, but that was never specified, right? So this is where MCPs and these instances of agents can be a little surprising. Okay, now look at that, there's an image. I never specified in the system instructions to actually inject images. And so for these two, it has. So that's behavior we might want to articulate a little bit more. We've got everything lining up. I had some issues before where it was entering time incorrectly, but it seems like that's been cleaned up. Oh, now it's asking for permission percent. Claude wants to use Coda list rest. Yeah, sure, go for it. That's interesting. So I feel like I clicked approve all in advance of this demo. So just while this is still working, the voice of, that's kind of like a side addition because I, like working in Coda and enabling pack powers. Packs in Coda language are basically just extensions. And so this was an idea of okay, when we do our wine recommendation, which I'll get to in a second, we can do it in the voice of somebody, right? It's one of those. It's an added cost to me personally because I have to hook it up to my API through OpenAI or through Claude or whatever your provider of choice is, and there is an incurred cost. So I don't think I'm going to really deploy that, at least not in a variable sense, just because it could be confusing. People have never used it before. Then we just have recipe ingredients, and I'm intending on just making this a template. So these different instructions, you can go and look through them on your own, right? This MCP that I made, this is all open source. The idea here is like, let's just experiment, let's try this stuff out. Wine recommendations, this is, you can see I had a few done by Bourdain, one by Ramsey. Then we can parse that into actual specific wine recommendations with categories of my choosing, right? Perfect pairing, accessible alternative, something maybe you want to splurge on a little bit, and then we like to shop at Trader Joe's, so like they've always got fun options over there. And yeah, so let's see how this is going. Let's go back over. So it did list rows, and okay, wanted to see ingredients. Okay, so it seems like it was struggling a little bit here. MCPs are still like only as good as the agent that's operating them and the instructions and the context that we give that agent. I found that Claude has been really impressive. So let's see. You can see that. Great. Now I need to create the recipe ingredient entries. Okay, let's see if it did. Recipe ingredients. We've got moment of truth. Okay, here they are. They're logged. Okay, so now that you've seen the back end, what is this actually going to look like? And so we've got some options here. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me go and click here. Okay, so all this information was logged in the back end, and now you can bring this up, and I think for right now, probably going to close you, Claude. I'm going to expand this just so I can show it in a better format and also get some feedback. This is the first person I showed this to is like, what I hate about recipe ingredients, aside from all their insane ads on the web pages, is that they do the ingredients and then they do the instructions afterwards. Like, can't we just see that information in the same place? So this is an attempt to do that. We might potentially just try to create a prompt that actually grabs the content and the quantity of these ingredients and injects them into the instructions. So we're still iterating. And this is meant to be like, hey, when you're cooking, you can follow along. Okay, cool. Did all this. Great. We've used these ingredients. Fine, cool. Clean up. This just resets that table. Then when you get down here, you just say, yeah, I want a wine recommendation. And of course, we could always configure this to be a beer recommendation too. But for most recipes that my wife and I make, wine is our question mark. Whereas I did come from the beer world, so I have a pretty good handle on what beer goes with what food really well. So you can see here, we've got this kind of outline, the 4 different buckets. And then if you like this, we want to make sure that you can save it, right? Because you can use this over and over again. So this button here just goes and says, hey, I want you to take this recommendation here, save it in the back end, which is now logging it into our recommendations table here. And this is actually set up to run an automation. And this automation, I think it will probably take 60 seconds to fire off. But basically what it does, it just looks through what we were just reading, and it says, hey, convert this recommendation to JSON, right? And so once the JSON's been converted, it ends up over here, and then it confirms that the JSON is valid. This is all programmer stuff. Okay, really into the weeds here. So we can just go ahead and fire this off. Once this has all been parsed and it's valid, then, once it's been converted from a recommendation to JSON and it's validated, then we go ahead and we parse. When we do the parse, we then get the individual recommendations, right? And so, again, there's still some kinks. I'm just showing as I'm building, but ultimately what that will look like now on your recipe collection page is that you've got these recommendations that will live with this record for as long as you want to keep it there. We've got one recipe that is one of our favorites, and I think my better half grabbed this from social media, and so I was able to drop a link in here, and so that was a call out from somebody who viewed this, like, this is really all good and cool and great, but I really love the ability to just like have the source video attached. And so again, we're still working on this. Like, some people post on YouTube, some people do it through TikTok, some people do it through Instagram, so it's not always like a one-for-one, but you get the gist of it. So if you like this, like, let me know. I'm going to make this template for Coda available to anybody. The MCP is already available to anybody, and really what you just need to do then is set up your Claude Desktop in a project, and then just go ahead and upload these Claude project files, and you'll be good to go. So, appreciate your time. Thank you.